In Donald Trump's second term, the middle and lower classes could experience a range of outcomes, depending on the administration's policies and economic circumstances. Trump's first term was marked by tax cuts, deregulation, an America First trade policy, and a mixed approach to healthcare and social safety nets. Based on these policies, we can forecast several possible impacts for the middle and lower classes in a hypothetical second term. In Trump's first term, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 focused primarily on cutting corporate taxes and reducing income taxes for individuals, with some temporary benefits for the middle class. However, the most significant benefits largely went to higher earners and corporations. If Trump extends or further enacts tax cuts, the middle class could see some continued benefit from lower income tax rates. However, the middle class is unlikely to see the same level of benefit as wealthier individuals, especially if the tax cuts disproportionately favor the top earners and corporations. Lower taxes could mean more disposable income in the short term, benefiting households in the middle income brackets. However, if Trump continues to focus on corporate tax cuts or attempts to reduce the overall tax burden for wealthier individuals, the middle class might not see much additional benefit. Also, tax cuts without revenue offsets could eventually result in budget deficits, leading to potential cuts in social safety programs that the middle class relies on. Lower-income families are less likely to benefit directly from tax cuts. If the middle class is squeezed by cuts to welfare or other government services to make up for lost tax revenue, the lower class could be more significantly impacted. Lower-income workers may benefit from job creation initiatives or wage growth in certain sectors if the economy continues to expand. However, lower-income families are less likely to see substantial tax relief, especially if Trump focuses on cutting corporate taxes or upper-bracket tax rates. Additionally, cuts to social safety nets, such as food assistance and housing support, could disproportionately harm lower-income families. Trump's first term featured attempts to repeal the Affordable Care Act, though he was unsuccessful. However, the Trump administration made efforts to weaken the ACA and expand short-term health plans with fewer protections. A second term would likely see further attempts to undo the ACA or reduce the role of government in healthcare. The middle class might experience mixed effects. While some middle-class families may benefit from reduced regulations and lower premiums on private insurance, many could also face rising healthcare costs if ACA protections are reduced and if private insurance becomes more expensive or less comprehensive. Some middle-class families may find more affordable health insurance plans, albeit with fewer benefits and protections, and those with employer-sponsored plans may benefit from deregulation. However, if protections for people with pre-existing conditions are rolled back or if states implement stricter work requirements for Medicaid, middle-class families could face higher premiums or lose access to coverage, particularly in states that have not expanded Medicaid. Lower-income Americans could be hit hardest by healthcare changes. If Trump continues to chip away at the ACA or reduces Medicaid expansion, the most vulnerable Americans could see their access to healthcare diminish. Cuts to programs like food stamps, public housing, and welfare could also undermine the safety net for the lower class. With cuts to welfare programs and potential reductions in Medicaid, lower-income families would likely face increased hardship, including greater difficulty affording healthcare and housing. On a very limited scale, some might benefit from job creation in lower-wage industries if economic policies stimulate growth in certain sectors. Trump's America First approach focused on bringing jobs back to the United States, particularly in manufacturing, and his administration initiated tariffs on countries like China to encourage domestic production. However, trade wars also led to higher prices for consumers, especially for middle and lower-income households who rely on imported goods. Middle-class workers in certain sectors, such as manufacturing, construction, or energy, might benefit from job creation or wage increases if the economy grows. However, middle-class households could also face challenges with higher costs for goods due to tariffs. And if the economy faces a slowdown or recession, their financial stability could be at risk. Pros include more jobs in certain industries and potentially higher wages, especially for skilled trades or those working in construction and manufacturing. Cons, however, are higher costs on goods due to trade policies, potential wage stagnation, and the erosion of certain benefits could offset these gains. Additionally, if the economic growth is concentrated in certain sectors, it may not be equally felt by all middle-class households. As for the lower class, lower-income individuals might see some benefits from job creation in sectors like construction or service industries, but these jobs may not always offer long-term security, benefits, or livable wages. If tariffs lead to higher prices, lower-income families might struggle more than others. Pros include job creation, particularly in lower-skill sectors like construction, service, and retail, which could provide more opportunities. Cons are, if trade wars escalate or the economy slows, lower-income households could lose jobs in vulnerable sectors. Additionally, the absence of strong wage growth or benefits would make it difficult for these families to build wealth or save. A second term for Trump could involve further efforts to reduce or eliminate funding for safety net programs, such as food assistance, SNAP, housing assistance, and unemployment benefits. Additionally, Trump has pushed for cuts to public sector spending in areas that disproportionately benefit the lower and middle classes. The middle class could face cuts to programs they rely on, such as education funding housing assistance or community health programs, as part of efforts to reduce government spending. Cuts to public services or state-level education programs could increase costs for middle-class families who rely on public education and local government services. Cons include the loss of public services that could make life harder for the middle class, particularly those in areas with fewer private alternatives like education and healthcare. Pros, on the other hand, if the tax burden is reduced and deregulation allows businesses to grow, it could reduce some costs for the middle class, though these benefits might be offset by other challenges. Lower-income families are the most vulnerable to cuts in welfare programs. Trump's push for work requirements and reduced eligibility for benefits like Medicaid or food stamps could lead to hardship for the poorest Americans. Cons include cuts to welfare programs and stricter eligibility requirements that would make it harder for lower-income individuals to access healthcare, food, and housing assistance. Rising inequality and stagnant wages would also make it harder for the lower class to move up the economic ladder. Pros: some lower-income workers might see more job opportunities if there is an economic uptick in certain sectors, but this would be contingent on the overall health of the economy. While Trump's policies might spur short-term economic growth, critics argue that such growth may be unevenly distributed. The middle class could see some improvements, but the lower class may continue to face barriers to upward mobility. A strong economy could benefit the middle class in the form of job growth, higher wages, and improved financial security. However, the benefits of economic growth would likely be more concentrated among the wealthy and corporations, potentially limiting the middle class's share of the gains. Pros include some job growth, higher wages, and stock market gains that could benefit the middle class in specific sectors. Cons, however, rising inequality could mean that middle-class gains are tempered by increasing costs of living, stagnating wages in some industries, and a lack of wealth-building opportunities. Lower-income individuals are less likely to experience the same benefits of economic growth, especially if it is concentrated in higher skill or higher wage industries. Without significant structural changes to address inequality, the lower class might face continued hardship. Cons include the gap between the wealthy and the poor could widen, and lower-income families may face increased difficulty moving up the economic ladder. In a second term, Trump's policies could create a mixed bag of outcomes for the middle and lower classes. Middle class. They might experience some benefits in terms of lower taxes and job creation in certain sectors. However, they would also face challenges from potential cuts to social services, rising costs from trade wars, and a lack of significant wage growth across many industries. Lower class. The lower class could face the brunt of cuts to social safety nets, healthcare, and public services. While job creation in certain sectors might provide opportunities, these jobs might not offer long-term security or sufficient wages to lift families out of poverty. Overall, the middle and lower classes could see some short-term gains, but their long-term financial security would likely depend on how effectively Trump's policies address inequality, job quality, healthcare, and the social safety net. Without structural changes to ensure that growth benefits all Americans, the middle and lower classes may continue to face economic pressure, with gains skewed toward the wealthy.